Hello and welcome to another FENEX webinar. This time we're with ODL Europe and we are tackling the very important subject of fire doors. We're with Nathan of ODL Europe and we're with Ian Glenister of ODL Europe as well. Good afternoon, good morning or good evening to you both.
Evening. Hello, Jason.
The subject of fire doors, it's one that's become, it's always been important, but it's become increasingly more important and sensitive since the tragedy at Grenfell 3 years ago, where I think 72 people lost their lives in that awful tragedy in London. And since then, quite rightly, a huge amount of scrutiny has been put on the materials that were used in that building during their renovations, fire doors being one of them. And I know Ian and Nathan will want to have a comment and just talk about for a moment about the impacts we think that tragedy had, not just on fire doors, but construction as well.
I think the whole Grenfell situation had massive effects, not only in the construction industry, but in various different aspects of life. Not since the Second World War has that many people died in a fire. I suppose Piper Alpha would be the next biggest one, but the whole way the situation was handled has brought a lot of things into question. The massive impact is that started from one apartment with a faulty electrical device, a fridge, in fact. But the way the building was constructed and signed off by the architects made it basically into a complete chimney that it took over 60 hours for the fire brigade to get control of. And as you quite rightly say, during that time, 72 people unfortunately lost their lives. A lot of things have changed since then. From a fire point of view, the cladding obviously has to be looked at, but the whole way the system of fire evacuation, the way the council and the fire brigades handled that tragedy is being investigated, and a lot of lessons can be learned and must be learned, so we don't suffer the same thing again.
I think it was for the composite door industry. It was a bit of a wake up call. An industry that had flourished, and there were a lot of good products out there, but it was all based on paperback studies, on assessments, etc. So I think after the following MHCLG investigation, the whole industry decided to suspend manufacture and basically get its house in order.
I remember when, because it started, I think, just before 1 a.m. And I think by the time we were all waking up, we were all waking up to that horror on the TV screens. I just remember it didn't look real. It looked something like out of a film. It looked like one of those things you wouldn't imagine would ever happen. And I remember in the days and weeks afterwards, and the early investigation information started to come out, and it was starting to affect the fire door sector in our little world quite heavily. And I remember quite a lot of withdrawals of products, and since then, this is the reason why we're talking to you guys about this today. Since then, there's been a huge, I would say, quite a fundamental shift in testing, in product. I mean, Ian, how would you say? I mean, one of the big criticisms that came out of that tragedy was the actual testing of the products. Would you agree?
I would agree. Yeah. Like I say, I think people had sat back and worked on assessments rather than actual testing of product. And in many cases, what somebody had tested when it finally came to being was a different product based on desktop studies. So I think one of the things that has come out of this is that everybody has now gone back to test, and while the assessment is still there, it's a very, very small part of the process. Everybody is now testing their product to such a degree that they are 100% that it is a safe product to go back to the market, and that's taken circa 18 months, if not longer.
In the fire door market, you've if you look at it, that the fire doors in these apartments or flats, that's the only entrance and exit to that dwelling.
Yeah.
So at minimum, that's going to be used open and closed twice a day. And when a door is put on test, whether it's on a desktop assessment or actually in a test rig, it is installed to perfection. There's a lot of questions got to be asked on what's the maintenance of these doors, who's been checking these doors, and there's reports that some of the doors weren't actually fire doors, and residents had changed them to different doors. Oh. Not just only in that building, but in other buildings around the country. A lot of residents and homeowners are changing them the doors that are there bespokely for a reason to prevent fire have been changed. So not only, the product will work on a global assessment, as Ian says on paper, but then you've got also the issue of the homeowners or the tenants changing the doors, knocking the doors, not maintaining them properly over a longer period, and more importantly, not being inspected by authorities to ensure they're correct. Now, hindsight's wonderful. So we looked at this. Everyone did. I mean, the ACDM, which is the Association of Composite Door Manufacturers, as Ian quite rightly said, the MHCLG asked us to suspend production until we could find out exactly what we were doing, how things were being assessed, what was being assessed. And a word that was the buzzword, and it still is the buzzword, is to prove the consistency of every single product, because test results in the fire door market have spanned from a 30-minute fire door from anything from 10, 15 minutes up to 30, 40 minutes, 50 minutes for some doors. And it's knowing what the difference is to make sure that we get a consistent result.
That's a huge range from 10 to 50 minutes.
It is. And that can be on the same door and the same specification. So what we wanted to do is understand why this was occurring. ODL, we partner with Capstone Engineering out of Dalian, and we haven't produced a fire door in the UK for many a year. It was a market we didn't want to sort of get into, really. When ODL partnered with Capstone and brought the door back into the UK into 2017, it was one of the products that we were aware of, but we just basically stayed away from that market. When this disaster happened, we looked at it and thought, what can we do different? What more can we do to make sure this doesn't happen again? And what we did is basically stripped it back to the drawing board. What could we do differently with this door to ensure consistency, security, and ease of fitting? We work very, very closely with Capstone engineers and our own technical Ian. We work with our customers to understand what they wanted, and we've developed a product that is completely different to the standard method of phenomic foam fire doors. We looked at it, and because it was a brand new construction of a door, we looked at what other ways we can improve this to reduce our stock holding. Instead of having the 3 standard sizes, there's 2 sizes.
Yeah.
That you can get all 95% of the array of composite door sizes out of. We looked at it then and then thought, well, why is this inconsistency? And through mold flow analysis, it was all to do with the injection of the foam. It creates eddies.
Okay.
Now, in a normal composite door, that really doesn't make any difference because they're skewed by design. However, when heat gets into them, that can make the difference between a 15-20 minute and a 50 minute. So we thought we've got to find a better way and a different material. In doing that, we also looked at the environmental impacts of materials, and that's where we developed a agrofiber core, which is a pressed board, similar to chipboard but made out of agricultural product, so we can control the density. It's environmentally friendly, and it's got the U values, it's got the security, and therefore that's why we brought it into the market. As Ian quite rightly says, we didn't have a product, and everyone sort of raced to get their door over the line to make sure it was consistent. And we took our time, we thought about it, and we thought what we can do, and we didn't we didn't rush it in the slightest. When we launched this product, we've been in communication with 2 or 3 of our customers, and we estimated the first year sales of about 2,500 units. We currently have orders of over 15,000
Wow.
parts for this fire door. Obviously, with the international crisis at the moment, we're struggling, as everyone is, to get
the supply chain is under a lot of pressure at the moment.
Yeah, it is. But I think everyone appreciates that, and our customers are working really well with us. We're all in the same boat at the end of the day, whether it's any other door slab supplier. But we're very, very confident, and we've proved that this door works. We spent over £100,000 just on testing, just to make sure it passes every single test. Not just passes it, exceeds it.
This is it. If we're going to learn from this, and Ian, your input would be good on this. As Nathan's just said there, rather than just meet a standard or meet a requirement, to exceed it, to give the product a better chance or the best chance it can in an emergency. I think that's the right way to go. At the end of the day, that tragedy is a chance to learn lessons, to prevent more tragedies of a similar kind happening again. Don't just meet a standard, better it.
Yeah, it's far exceeded, Dave. What we've done is we've taken a door which it took 2 years to get there, but we took a door that was originally designed to meet the 30-minute standard. That essentially we've had what we would call in the industry an overrun of nearly 100%. So in some instances, this door has gone to 70 minutes at test. And that's been done not only by ODL, but with a range of fabricators. So we've proved consistency in the results, but we've proved consistency by taking different fabrication companies who then got the same result again and again. As Nathan, go back to Nathan's buzzword from the MHCLG, consistency was always the name of the game. So for us, it was about redesigning and coming up with a product we could go back to the market and just essentially prove consistency. As you've just said, learn from the mistakes. So remove the issues that were there, which we believe to be the phenolic core, and bring a product to market that has shown huge consistency.
I mean, as a sector, we owe that, don't we? People tragically lost their lives to that. We owe it to everybody affected to do better, to be better, not to worry about a bit of cost saving here, a bit of time saved there. It's got to be better, because when it comes to something like this isn't just a window or just a back door. This is, as Nathan pointed out earlier, a lot of people's only in and out of their home. And if it does not work and it does not do the job, then it becomes a very serious matter. There was another point as well in that, and it was education. Nathan mentioned something about either tenants or homeowners, changing a fire door back to a regular composite door, for example. Do we need to do more, or does more need to be done on the education front to tell, whether it's installers or the general public, to say, look, these fire doors, these are important. A lot of you have them. This is what you need to know.
I think, 100%. And there's various schemes that are in discussion about how we can monitor and ensure that the right door is in the right dwelling. One of the things we're working on is inserting RFID tags into the doors.
Okay.
And making sure basically that the councils or maintenance companies go round once a year and scan the RFID tag, and that data will be tracked from the point it was made in China, which fabricators made it, when it was last inspected, if there was anything wrong with it, so on and so forth, so we can get full traceability. That project we've been working on for, again, since the inception of the fire door, and we know we can insert the RFID tag. We're just working on the software and the technical behind it to make sure that the whole process could be seamless. If you go into any sort of commercial building or social building, there'd be fire test logs for in your own businesses. You test the fire alarm once a week. In these buildings, then surely we should be just doing visual checks on fire doors, making sure the closers are still on them. People don't like closers on doors because it's annoying when you bring in your shopping in. But
they're there for a reason.
Exactly, and it's getting the tenants or the homeowner to understand that is not there for their hindrance. I mean, we can all do it, and I think the Grenfell raised a massive point of fire awareness in any industry, in any buildings. I mean, you know yourself, you can walk around some sites or some shops or anything, and they'll have the fire extinguishers holding the doors open.
Yeah, and I've seen that. Yeah.
There's a reason them doors close. There's a reason there's a fire extinguisher there. But we as a society just look for the easiest way. If we're moving stuff in, just wedge that door open. Once that door's wedged open, you're creating a massive vortex and air tunnel to spread fires. We never think it's going to happen to us. You know, no one ever did. You know, living in the 21st century, and something like that happening in one of the leading nations in the world is an absolute abortion. You'd think of things like that happening in third world countries. That's, you know, one of the biggest financial district in the world, possibly, and that happens 10 mile away from London city centre.
We think ourselves of and rightly so, because in a lot of areas we do lead, but as a highly regulated, highly efficient, high quality sector. But it was obvious, and has become obvious since we found out more, that corners were cut, as you said, easier routes were sought, and as you've said, you know, things are in place for a reason. Door closers are there for a reason. Nobody likes regulation. Nobody dare say nobody loves it, but it's all there for specific purposes, and that was a very, very good example.
If you look at that, and corners were cut, why were corners cut? Because everyone's trying to drive the price down. You know, if it was X amount for a fire door, well, he can do it for £10 less, and he can fit it for £3 less. Our fire door is expensive. It is. It's expensive because there's a reason. We know that is consistent. We've invested hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds into this product. That product will protect for a minimum of 36 minutes, right? Minimum. We've not even had a door fail at 36 minutes. Ian, what's the lowest failure we had of a 30-minute fire door?
The lowest failure would be 46 minutes of a glazed door. The lowest failure of an unglazed door, just reviewing it today, was 66 minutes. So we've gone for this. As Nathan says, we've put a lot into this. It's not going to be the cheapest product on the market. The fact is, it will be the most consistent product on the market, and it's a product that you can stand behind. It will achieve the standard time and time again.
This is big. I mean, for those who have watched the webinars or perhaps visited the other stands as well, the one theme that's coming out of this is the industry is in a very obvious way is moving towards quality. We are learning that things are made more expensive for a reason. And when it comes to fire doors, I cannot think of a more important product that absolutely has to do the job every single time. And it is that C word again, consistent. This product that you're making in the tens of thousands, it looks like, has to go on every door, fitted properly in every opening, and do the job in an emergency if ever that time arrives. And do you want to sacrifice quality for price on that front? No, it has. This is the one thing. I mean, people who follow discussions we've had on this in the past, I've never liked the way the sector drives the price down on anything, but on this one, you can't do that. You just cannot.
But you think about who, in 80% of the fire doors are going into commercial buildings. So you have to then take a step back and say, well, who is actually driving this price down? Is it the contractor? Is it the architect? Or is it actually the government who are having this fitted in the first place?
The entire supply chain, we have to understand. We have to learn. It's got back to learning again. We have to learn from this and say, look, 20 quid on a slab here is not worth somebody's life. 30 quid a slab, it's just not worth it. Just pay more money, do the job right, fit a better product, and go home at night knowing you've done the best you can.
We like to use the saying that we like to make products better before we make them cheaper.
I like that.
And that's what we try. As part of ODL, one of our mantras is good enough is just not good enough. And that's what we've used on this fire door.
I like that. I may steal that for something else, by the way. It's right, though, especially when it comes to something that, look, we knew this would be an emotive topic to cover because of the situation that has been. But it is so important we do talk about it because we have to learn and we have to be better. I mean, as the rest of the industry watches this, a lot of installers will be watching back on this, looking at fire doors and fabricators too, and wondering whether to get back into this part of the market. Ian, Nathan, what would you say to them? Is now the time to come back and look at this again?
I'd say definitely. Definitely come back into the market because there's a lot of doors out there that need replacing, and fire doors will always be needed on buildings. What we've done is our approach to the sales is we've not gone out there with a mass scattergun approach and said, right, anyone who can make a door can make a fire door, because that's not true.
No.
We've gone with strategic partners, as well as working with Winkhouse on their fire frame, and each one of the partners that we've got, we've helped fund their testing. We've gone through their factory process controls, got through the Q marks. Ian's a whiz with all the certification and everything that needs to go through. We've done it in such a way that we know these people are not basically making a normal composite door 100 a day and then dropping in 2 fire doors. They're making fire doors in a prescribed route and a prescribed method that ensures we have the consistency. And that's why we haven't offered this product to every man and his dog. We're working with key partners who are doing it right. We believe there's more out there that we're more than willing to talk to, but we will not cut corners. It's a very expensive market to get into, testing-wise. And if people want to get into this market, we have to see their testing. We have to see them manufacture a door and burn a door to ensure.
So you go as far as that then.
Mm-hmm.
I think the time is right for people to come back in, but there are a lot more rules and regulations and hoops to get to for the manufacture and installation side of things, which is only right. And ODL, like Nathan said, we've cherry-picked people to work with, but we're quite equally happy to help them through to get them to that stage. But it isn't for everybody now, but it is, the time's right. The products are now available to come back into the market.
Do you think that was the problem before? It was available to everybody, and as Nathan's just alluded to there, you don't want to be giving this to people who make, hundreds of composite door slabs a week, but only a couple of fire doors.
Yeah, that essentially was how it was. People could by obtaining a test report from a source, they could turn their hand to fire doors without having to test, without having to prove a thing. That's completely changed now. The whole point is you do have to test. You do have to prove yourself. Most of local authorities, etc., are looking for certification on the back of the product now as a prerequisite to even purchasing it. So again, that's the route we've taken. Our product is Q marked all the way from China through to the UK to when it arrives on site. There is full traceability and certification following our product, and that is where people need to be now.
So to be clear, that wasn't a requirement before all this happened?
No.
You look back on that now. You look back at what you've just said there makes sense. You've got a very rigorous procedure in place. You go as far as Nathan's just said, having them burn a door to make sure they've done as you've instructed them to do. Yet when you think back now, that wasn't in place before, and that just seems odd.
No, if you bought a slab from supplier A, some glass from supplier B, some cassettes from supplier C, and locks from supplier D, and you said, "Yeah, I can make all them into a fire door," you can make a fire door. And that's correct, isn't it, Ian?
as long as you follow the recipe, that if that you obtain a test report from somebody, a systems house essentially, and set yourself up as a fire door fabricator, as long as you followed the recipe. But as you know, when we all bake cakes, they don't all come out the same, do they?
No.
Unless you prove one first time round, you know. So as we are now, like I say, Nathan said, in our view, with QMark, etc., the customer or fabricator has to burn a door. He has to now prove that he can manufacture that product and it meets the standard.
And burning a door isn't cheap. And if you can't afford to burn a door, it's not really a market you want to be in.
No, I mean, it's great that you've obviously, you know, from start to finish, you've clearly come up with a procedure to make sure everybody's doing things by the book. I'm just amazed. Perhaps it's one of those hindsight things. You look back on that now and you think, wow, we weren't doing that before. And that just amazes me. So, look, I mean, if any installers and fabricators are wanting to get back into the fire door market, it does sound like ODL have got the product and the procedure, which is as important as each other, in place. Have a word with them.
Definitely.
Okay. Well, look, thank you both for your time, both of you, Nathan, Ian. Thank you for joining us on this webinar to talk about it's an emotive but important subject. While you're here, go visit the ODL stand. You can find out more about this and everything else they do. You'll be able to catch this webinar on the on-demand service that we have. And it will also be going out on the Saturday stream, premiering on our YouTube channel on the Saturday, the 30th of January. So thank you all for watching. Ian, Nathan, thank you for your time, and we'll see you all soon.
Thanks.
Thank you.